Even though the end of the Second World War meant that many trade routes were cleared, the population of the UK was still seeing the crunch. Rationing was still in full swing, and many, especially in inner cities, had to literally pick up the shattered pieces of their lives as well as start to rebuild their houses. But the rebuild brought a new age. The war brought many advancements, and these cascaded down to the new homes. Despite rationing, which was still in effect, this new era was seen as the Golden Age. The Southern Railway was keen to capitalise on this new age and eager to bring a sense of normalcy to their region. Before the war, the railway prided itself on the best it could offer, and nothing at the time was more luxurious than Pullman. Pullman was not a stranger to the Southern Railway. In fact, prior to the war, the two companies had a strong relationship. As Pullman was mostly associated with luxury, resorts and continental travel, it made sense to work with the Southern Railway and its access to its many ports. The Brighton line in particular was already a well-established Pullman train by that point. It was hoped that a new train would run from London to Cornwall, would replicate the success and the following that the Brighton Belle had. But both the Southern and Pullman were not ignorant to the austerity measures still in place around the country. The majority of its set were used Pullman cars, but the Southern Railway and Pullman wanted to make a statement with this train, so they purchased a 1921 Pullman converted ambulance carriage from the London and South Western Railway. The coach was outfitted as a brake coach in 1937, which was a real plus for the Southern Railway's plans. It joined another repurposed Pullman coach, and both entered the works together. The plan was to make them observation cars. Each coach was single-ended, meaning that they could only travel at the ends of the train, and they had to be turned on a turntable. But there was method to the madness. At the ends of each car were paned with large windows giving a full panoramic view. It would seat 27 people, and the seats were reversible, so that passengers had the choice to either sit forward or backward. It also meant that the seats were made for two could be switched, so parties of four can sit comfortably facing each other. This feature would be extended to all of its carriages. This also leads to the end car's second purpose. Glass surrounds, reversible seating, and more open surrounding made it perfect to house the bar. Amazingly, other than whiskey, alcohol was not rationed in the war. Its raw materials, however, were more difficult to obtain, which increased its final price. Taxes didn't help either, however, those taxes did help the war effort. Labelled numbers 13 and 14, both cars rolled out of the Pullman works in Brighton at the beginning of 1947. Although these seemed new and modern, observation cars were not a new concept. Before the years of the Big Four, observation cars were most likely inspired from older inspection and director's saloon cars. Many of the larger independent railways had a director's saloon. These cars could be called upon for many different reasons by the directors of the company. If the directors wanted to inspect the track or track bed, for example, the large bay windows would offer this in comfort and style. If the directors wanted to stop, then if the saloon had a guard's compartment, the guard could indicate to the crew, or in some cases, a vacuum brake lever was installed for this use. The carriage would be purposely open plan and normally incorporate a large desk at one end, which was room for several people. In the days of where espionage and corporate sabotage was common, meetings on delicate matters could not be trusted in station offices or at their headquarters. Instead, the directors would use this moving boardroom to their advantage and was able to conduct the most secret of meetings without the fear of being disturbed or have their meetings overheard by the wrong people. Directors' saloons soon reached the appeal of the passengers. Not for meetings, of course, just people wanting to enjoy the view. The American railways, keen to profit from the idea, built balconies on the back of their trains where people could access for an additional fee. Considering Pullman was American, it was only time that the idea of public observation cars would come across, and the Big Four were keen to adopt the concept. To pull the train, the Southern Railway would commonly use their flagship merchant Navy-class Bullitt locomotives, but the engines were swapped at Exeter Central with light Pacific engines that continued on west. These 462 locomotives were lighter than the Merchant Navy classes, so were permitted on many more routes. It was especially noted that some parts of the line were challenging and that bankers were usually required, even for these powerful engines. On the 20th of June 1947, all was prepared and the train were ready to depart for the first time. Unusually, Southern Railway made every seat on the train available to be reserved. Normally, a number of seats remained open for walk-in passengers, that is, passengers simply turning up to the station. By removing this facility on the Devon Belle, it helped confirm numbers and allow for passengers to choose their preferred sections on the train, although if the train were full, there was a risk passengers may have to be turned away. The Southern Railway hoped that this luxury train would be the start of their golden age, away from the austerity years and the misery of war, and would be a lasting legacy before their merger into British Railways. But considering the hardships from the war, it simply wasn't affordable and appealing enough to the public. It was stunning, true, but the price put many off, especially considering they had more pressing matters. The Devon Belle did continue into British Railway eras, but the Plymouth route was soon curtailed, along with other routes shortly after. The coaches were used elsewhere. The observation cars were eventually pulled from the Devon Belle and ended up in the London Midland regions. They were mostly used on excursion and charter runs, and even had a stint working in Scotland. Number 13 ended up back down south and was preserved by the Dart Valley Railway. It moved from preservation site to preservation site before calling the Dartmouth Steam Railway home. Number 14 went quite a bit further afield. It was chosen to be the accompanying coach for the Flying Scotsman's tour in America. After the money from the tour ran dry, both it and Scotsman became stranded. While the UK managed to bring Scotsman home, number 14 wasn't so lucky and for many years was shunted away, eventually becoming attached to an office block in San Francisco and being used for meetings. Over the years, the office block would eventually become vacant, but the new owner had inherited this oddity, was sympathetic to the coach's plight. He extracted it from his building and gave it to a railway enthusiast. Luckily, he was a preservationist and knew he had a rare find on his hands, but he also knew that the coach did not belong in America. He contacted the Swanage Railway and in 2007, at a cost of £60,000, number 14 were brought home. It took only a year to get her back on the rails again, and both coach and Scotsman were finally reunited in 2019. It had so much potential, and considering the success of the Brighton Belle, it was easy to see why the Southern Railway were keen to push such an elaborate train. Both 13 and 14 survive, and both in active use on their respective railways. They still carry their own bars, and yeah, you can get a drink. Although observation cars on the UK rails fell out of favour for more traditional coaches, I feel that we as passengers are missing out. Let's face it, I wouldn't mind paying extra for a view like this as you travel down the line. Wouldn't you agree?